Hi, I'm Gemma McGregor and welcome to this Education and Early Years Assessor Masterclass. In this recording, we're focusing on observation with intention and how to make every minute count when you're gathering meaningful evidence of your students' practice. We'll look at what to pay attention to, how to interpret what you see, and how to link it clearly to assessment criteria. Let's get started. So in today's recording, here's what we're going to focus on based on the original live event. We'll explore the observation and assessment cycle together and look at sample observations and share some professional judgments. During the live event, this was a group activity. We watched a short clip, pausing and talking through what each of us noticed. You can still take part in the activity by pausing this recording when prompted and using the link in the video description to access the video clip yourself. And finally, we'll develop some strategies to help your students meet specific criteria with more confidence. This is where we connect everything back to T-level expectations and consider what genuinely supports students to show what they can do. These aims mirror what we covered live: purposeful observation, confident judgment, and supporting students to demonstrate clear criteria-linked practice. Before we start, I'd just like to say a quick word about how you can get the most out of this recording. In the live session, this was really interactive. Participants were discussing, reflecting, and pausing to analyse the clip together. You can still do all of that here. Throughout the recording, I might prompt you to pause, to think, or to take part in the activity we used on the day, and work through it at your own pace. This will mean you're not just watching, you're actively practicing the same observation and judgment skills we explored in the live session. So first, let's explore using Padlet. This is the main space we used during the live session to share our ideas, reflections, and responses. If you were with us on the day, you'll remember we had everyone jump onto the Padlet board so we could build a shared bank of insights as we went. If you're watching the recording, you can still do that here. Simply scan the QR code on the screen or use the link in the video description to open the Padlet board. When we reach the activity, you can pause the recording, head over to Padlet and add your thoughts in exactly the same way that we did live. Don't worry about layout or format. It's a sandbox space. You can just post anything that captures you or makes you think as you work through the task. Before we jump into the actual activity, let me quickly show you how to open the different linked items on the Padlet board. If you've not used it before, anytime you see a form, a document or a link, just click in the top left corner of the icon. That's where the Open button sits. Once you click here, the item will pop open in a new window and you can work through it without losing your place on the Padlet. So whether it's the Microsoft form or the observation pro forma, always use that little top left corner to open things up. Now let's look at the tools you can use in the Padlet sandbox. Just like the live event, this space is meant to be hands-on, so feel free to experiment with it. You've got a few key tools that you can see on screen now. The cursor tool lets you select and move items around the screen. You can use this if you want to reposition anything that you've added. The text tool adds a simple text box, which is great for short reflections or a quick note. The note tool is a post-it note style box. You can change the colour, type directly into it, and move it anywhere on the board. And this was the tool that most people used in the live session. There's also emojis and sticker tools. Feel free to drop these in to highlight ideas, emphasise points, or just make the space more visual. Remember, this is a sandbox, so there's no right or wrong way to use it. You can add your thoughts to this space and engage with it just like the group did on the day. Alright, now let's move into the first activity. In the live session, this is where everyone jumped onto the Padlet and started adding their thoughts, so you can do exactly the same here. When I talk you through the task, just pause the recording, open the Padlet using the link in the description, and work through it at your own pace. This activity is designed to get you thinking, noticing, interpreting, and capturing what you see, so be as reflective and detailed as you like. Let's take a look at the criteria we used in the live session. So here's the criteria we were working with during the live session. These examples are taken from the Early Years Educator criteria, but the theme is just as relevant for assisting teaching, because in both pathways we're looking at how the student communicates, responds, and supports learning in real time. So for this activity we're focusing on two key areas. 6A, which is using and modelling good communication skills. This includes clear spoken language, professional language, and how they communicate with children and colleagues in practice. And 1CC, which is responding to the needs and interests of the child to support intended learning. This might include encouragement, introducing new interests, or applying strategies that extend children's thinking and sustain shared thinking. As you watch the observation, try to keep these criteria in mind. Think about where can you see evidence of them, and what does it look like in action? Let's explore how this plays out through the observation. For this next part, I'd like you to join in with the activity we used during the live session. You'll notice the Microsoft form on the screen here. This is the same reflection task that everyone completed on the day. It's linked directly on the Padlet, which is included in the video description. When you're in the Padlet, just click the little top left corner of the icon to open the form in a new window. This activity will ask you to watch the observation clip and record what you notice in relation to the criteria we just looked at. There are a few short questions to guide your thinking. Things like the strategies the practitioner uses, how they respond to the child's interests, and any examples of communication or interaction that stand out to you. You can use the form to capture your immediate reflections and then head back to the Padlet to add any extra notes or post-it notes if you want to build on your thinking or share with others. So, when you're ready, pause the recording, open the form using the link in the description or straight from the Padlet, and work through the questions at your own pace. Take your time with it. It's all about practicing that assessor mindset. Now you've had a chance to work through the activity yourself, let's take a look at what came out of the live session. When we did this together on the day, there were so many rich observations. People picked up on different interactions, different strategies, and different pieces of evidence linked to the criteria. It was a great reminder that even when we watch the same clip, our professional lens shapes what we notice. In this next section, I'll share some of the key themes and reflections that came from your peers during the live event. As you listen, have a think about how their insights compare to your own. What's similar? Is anything different? And what does it tell you about the way we make professional judgments? Let's take a look at what your peers shared. So during the live session, we asked everyone to reflect on one key question. What does this example reveal about how observation supports assessment? As you can see on the screen now, a whole range of really thoughtful points came through the discussion. People talked about how observation gives us real-time evidence, what's actually happening in the moment, and not just what a student says they can do. Others highlighted how it helped us understand what the child knows and can do, either independently or with support, which is central to making sound professional judgments. Several assessors also mentioned how valuable it is for seeing how students put their knowledge into action, sometimes picking up great practice the student themselves doesn't even realise they're demonstrating. There were also reflections about student voice and children's voices, sustained shared thinking, curiosity and play, and those everyday interactions that can hold a lot of assessment value if we know what we're looking for. Taken together, these comments really reinforce the purpose of observation. It gives us a richer, more authentic picture of a student's practice, and it helps inform the next steps we set with them. As you look at these reflections, think about how they compare with your own ideas from the activity. What stands out for you? And what do you see as the strongest link between observation and assessment? Here's another snapshot of what came out of the live session, when we explored how practitioners responded to the child's needs and interest. We talked about this together on the day. A lot of people focused on the practitioner's flexibility and how he moved with the children rather than directing them. Comments highlighted things like joining group play, following the children's lead, and creating opportunities for exploration and problem solving without taking over. Others picked up on the importance of stepping back, watching closely, and choosing the right moment to extend learning. The ability to tune in to what's happening in the moment is a big part of effective assessment, because it gives us a clearer sense of what children can do naturally. There were also reflections around scaffolding, open-ended questions, and allowing children the space to interact with each other before an adult intervenes. All of these contribute to meaningful evidence when we're assessing a learner's practice. So the key theme here is that responding to the child isn't about leading the activity, it's about being present, observant, and intentional. That's why it's such an essential skill for students to show in practice. Next, we explored shared thinking. We asked assessors to note down one sign or phrase they look for that shows genuine shared thinking is happening, and the responses really captured the essence of what we're assessing. A lot of people focused on those open-ended prompts, things like what do you think, what would happen if, or simply I wonder. Those kinds of questions invite children to reason, predict, and articulate their ideas. Others picked up on listening behaviours, the practitioner tuning into what children were saying, picking up on their comments and weaving those ideas back into the interaction. That responsiveness is a key part of shared thinking. There were also reflections again on scaffolding, such as offering just one idea and then stepping back to let the children explore, or adapting questions in the moment to support problem solving. And then there were signs from the children's side too, things like using language introduced by the practitioner, building on each other's comments, or coming to conclusions together rather than waiting for the adult to lead. All of this gives us really rich evidence of learning in action. As assessors, recognising these moments help us judge not just what the student is doing, but how they're enabling deeper thinking. Now let's look specifically at how the evidence linked back to the criteria. When we asked assessors to identify one clear example, people pulled out a wide range of observations. Some focused on communication, noting things like the rich vocabulary used, playing with tone and rhythm, and those open-ended prompts, such as what if, that really stretched the children's thinking. Others highlighted examples of responding to children's interests, extending learning with the planks, introducing new ideas at the right moment, or building on something the children were already exploring. There were also lots of references to sustained shared thinking, experimenting with new words and phrases, giving children the time to think, and helping them link vocabulary to their actions. What's really helpful here is that people weren't just describing the practice, they were linking it directly back to the criteria. For example, 1CC, responding to children's needs and interests, and the requirement to use and model good communication skills. This kind of precise criteria-linked evidence is exactly what strengthens our assessment decisions. Here's a quick poll we used during the live session to bring everything together. We asked assessors to make a judgment based on the evidence. Did the practitioner meet both of the criteria? Yes, no, or partially. If you'd like to take part as well, the poll is still live on the Padlet, so feel free to pause the recording and cast your vote. It's a nice way to check your thinking against the wider group and reflect on how confident you feel in your assessment decisions. Once you've voted, come back and we'll continue the recording. Here's what came through when we asked the group in the live session to reflect on their assessment decision and think about next steps. A lot of assessors noted that while the practitioner met many aspects of the criteria quite clearly, there were some gaps, particularly in this instance around written communication. Comments pointed out that we didn't see examples of written English, written vocabulary, or how the practitioner might communicate with colleagues or parents. Others mentioned gaps in context, such as whether balancing was a new interest for the child or how the practitioner might follow up this activity later on. These kind of reflections are really useful because they help shape what you might look for next time. People also shared approaches they would take to help students meet the criteria fully. Suggestions including asking learners to write up the observation, modelling written vocabulary, gathering evidence from emails, previous observations or staff meetings, and observing how they interact with parents in ways that show their written or formal communication skills. What this shows is that even when an observation is strong, there's always room to think about future planning. What is it you need to see next, and what support the student might need to fully demonstrate the criteria? So let's keep building on this. Next, we asked assessors whether they noticed any additional criteria being demonstrated beyond the original focus. As you can see, people picked up on quite a wide range of areas. Some highlighted aspects of child development, recognising expected patterns, supporting physical and social development, and noticing how children respond to challenge. Others identified links to pedagogical approaches, such as guided learning and the practitioner using different strategies depending on what the children needed in the moment. There were also comments related to risk and safety, EDI, healthy lifestyles, outdoor learning, and positive relationships. What's interesting is how naturally these elements emerged, even though they weren't the criteria we were originally looking for. This really highlights the nature of holistic observation. When we watch a student in authentic practice, we often see evidence across multiple criteria at the same time. A single interaction can give us insight into communication, development, inclusion, safety, and teaching approaches, all woven together into one moment. As assessors, being able to recognise and interpret that wider picture is what helps us build deeper, more accurate understanding of a student's overall competence and performance. These are some of the additional criteria that Janet, Elena and I felt could also be evidence, at least in part, during the clip. Even though they weren't the main focus of the activity, elements of these criteria naturally came through as the practitioner interacted with the children. For example, 1AF, which is supporting positive attachments and relationships, we saw warm, responsive interactions and age-appropriate boundaries during play. For 1AI, which is interacting with confidence to promote children's well-being, the practitioner joined play calmly, supported exploration and maintained that positive and reassuring presence. For 1AK, promoting health and well-being, there were indicators of physical activity, safe use of equipment and opportunities for movement outdoors. 1BE, communicating in ways children understand using both verbal and non-verbal cues. This was evident through modelling language, tone, gesture and meaningful responses to the children during the activity. We included these to show how, in a holistic observation, multiple criteria often overlap naturally. One short clip can provide insight into a student's practice across several areas, even if those areas weren't our original focus. Let's look at how this informs the next stage of the assessment process. Building on those additional criteria we just looked at, the next step in the process is thinking about how we can actually move from evidence to a professional judgment. In the live session, we asked assessors what they rely on when interpreting an observation, and these are some of the themes that came through. A lot of people talked about the importance of continually going back to the criteria, checking what you're seeing and hearing against the exact wording, and making sure the evidence genuinely aligns. Others mentioned the key role of standardisation, using the guidance, discussing with colleagues and drawing on your whole team to sense check decisions. That collaboration really helps to build consistency, especially when we're working with complex or borderline cases where we're not quite sure if a criteria is being met. There were also reflections about using your professional judgment and experience while still grounding it in clear written evidence of what the student actually did in the moment. And a few people pointed out that sometimes it's about remembering what level 3 practice looks and sounds like, that shared understanding we build over time through moderation, team discussion and experience. All of these elements work together to help us make sound, confident assessment decisions. It's not just what we think, it's how we justify it. To bring everything together, we ended the live session by asking assessors to imagine that a brand new T-level assessor had just joined the team. What was one piece of advice, a phrase or a tool they would pass on to help that person capture really clear criteria-linked evidence? And the responses here do a brilliant job of closing the loop on everything we've explored today. People emphasise the importance of always writing to the criteria, being specific and grounding every judgment in what you actually see and hear. Others highlighted the value of planning, mapping criteria and using the grouped themes in the guidance to stay organised and intentional. There were also reminders to trust your professional judgment. Keep referring back to the criteria and not to panic, especially when you're still getting used to what level 3 practice looks like, or indeed the T-level. And several people spoke about the importance of looking after yourself as an assessor and drawing on your wider team, sharing best practice, leaning on standardisation and learning from each other. In many ways, this slide sums up the whole message of the session. Purposeful observation isn't just about watching, it's about knowing what you're looking for, capturing it clearly, and using that evidence confidently to support your students on their journey. This is the mindset that helps new assessors, and all of us, make every minute count. Before we wrap up, I'd like to make sure you know where to go next and what support's available. In the live session, this was the point where we shared the tools, guidance documents and links that can really help you embed everything we've talked about today into your day-to-day assessment practice. So in this section, I'll walk you through the key resources you can access, where to find them and how they'll support you, whether you're brand new to T-level assessing or refining your existing approach. Let's take a look at what's available. On this slide, you can see a snapshot of the resource hub we used during the live session. All of these links, the videos, registration pages, Padlets and support materials are available for you to access directly through the Padlet link to this session. If you'd like to explore anything in more depth, just head over to the Padlet and you'll find all of these live links there and ready to use. There are recordings, upcoming Masterclass dates, Assessor Network sessions, best practice examples, and specific support for both assisting teaching and early years educator assessors via the dedicated Padlets. So whether you want to revisit something from today, continue your own development, or connect with a wider assessor community, everything you need is gathered there for you in one place. Take a little time to explore it. It's all there to support you in your role. If you'd like to continue developing your confidence with T-level assessment, the next session in the Masterclass series is already open for registrations. On Wednesday the 18th of March, we'll be running Education and Early Years Assessor Masterclass, Beyond the Score, Confident and Consistent Judgment. This session will focus on one of the most important assessor skills, which is applying banded criteria accurately and making confident, well-justified professional judgments. We'll work with some real examples, explore common challenges, and think about what consistent, reliable marking looks like across different contexts. If you'd like to join us, you can register using the link in the video description or through the events page on the NCFE website. We'd love to see you there. We'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to complete our short feedback form. Your insights genuinely help us shape future masterclasses. They tell us what's working for you, what you'd like more of, and how we can continue to support you in your assessor role. You can scan the QR code on the screen now or use the link in the video description to access the form. Thanks so much for taking the time to share your thoughts. It really does make a difference. Thank you again for being part of this Education and Early Years Masterclass. I hope today felt genuinely interactive and supportive of your ongoing professional development. Everything we've covered is designed to strengthen your confidence in observing practice and making clear, consistent assessment decisions. Please feel free to share the tools, prompts and approaches from this session with your colleagues and your students. The more we build shared understanding, the stronger our assessment becomes. We'd love to see you again, so do join us for the next Assessor Masterclass in the series and for any of our wider events across the year. Thanks once again for your engagement and for the work you do every day to support your students.